As we get settled today, I thought we could just take a moment to look where we're at. There's lots of birds and trees here with us today. There's a lot of beauty here, but it's also a day of great sadness in the passing of Costa Lelia. In this moment, we experience this beauty, but also the sadness, and these things being intertwined. And in the same way, our feelings about Costa are intertwined today in this great sadness of his passing, but also the joy of his life and the joy that he brought to each of us, those gifts he gave to all of us. So I wanted to tell you all good afternoon and welcome. Welcome. This is an important time to be together, to be here with one another, to share love, to share peace, as we lay Costa to rest. As we lay him to rest, we know it isn't goodbye. His spirit, intelligence, and care will forever live with us. And I, for one, right now, feel that warmth that I saw in his eyes and his smile at the wedding of Soysel and Nadia a few weeks ago. I'm Joan Isaacson. I'm a friend of the family, and my role here is to officiate today's funeral and to be here to support all of you as we come here and we gather in community. Also, I want you to know that with technology, we are connected today right now with people around the world who have played special roles in Costa's life and for whom Costa was special to them. So Costa's daughter, Margareta, his granddaughter, Nora, and son-in-law, Martin, are joining from Germany. Costa's sisters, Angelina and Frosida, along with Viorica, is here in person. And Costa's brother, Paye, Tosha, who are in Serbia, and their families are also joining us, as well as sisters-in-law Draga and Florica. Thank you to all who are here in person and who are also joining us, the many extended family, friends, and neighbors spread around the world and who are here with us today. We will soon hear eulogies from Costa's daughters, Diana, Elena, and Margareta. Margareta's will be read by cousin Deliana, and then we'll sing a hymn together led by cousin Mariana, which will be followed by laying the casket into the grave. This service may feel very short, and indeed it will be. So know that we will have much more time together at the reception this afternoon, and we'll be set up at the reception to share stories, memories, and words of support for each other. Before we begin the eulogies for Costa, the three daughters asked me to read a poem. It's called To Be of Use, and it's by Marge Piercy. To be of use. The people I love the best jump into work head first, without dallying in the shadows, and swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire must be put out. The work of this world is common as mud, botched. It smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. We're now going to hear our first eulogy from Diana.
Thank you, everyone, for being here to support us at this time of loss. My father, Costa Lelia, would have completed 86 years in August. He was born into a time when horses pulled the plows in fields and ended at a time when he could see his brother from Porac, Serbia, speaking through a computer screen in Del Mar, California. In the last years of his life, my father would say just counting to 86 will take a long time. The fifth of 10 children who survived to adulthood, Costa was raised by Pavel and Christina in a deeply religious household that kept their observances despite communism. While he was never baptized to his parents' religion, he was religious. I never heard my father swear. He kept the Sabbath. He was visibly angry with me when I questioned whether God existed in my high school years. Costa's childhood was difficult during World War II Yugoslavia. My mother tells stories of how people hid food from the Russians and lied. The religious families told the truth and had much of their food taken. In the 1990s, when Yugoslavia disintegrated, and I supported the effort to oust Milosevic, my father said to me, "You don't understand what's happening. How can you wish war on your relatives? You don't know what it's like to beg for bread from your neighbors." He knew hard times in his youth. Dad expressed with sadness that his parents' belief in religion kept him from getting an education. Costa financially supported his sister through vocational school and his daughters through college. Each daughter took her education further. I have a Bachelor of Architecture. Elena has a Bachelor of Arts in Spanish and Portuguese and received 2 masters, one in Latin American Studies and the other an MBA. Margareta has a Bachelor of Science in International Agriculture Development with a minor in French, and her PhD is in Geography. Dad was very proud of us. Despite the little formal schooling my father had, Costa had a deep understanding of math. At about age 14, he apprenticed under a master builder and learned all the aspects of building houses in Yugoslavia. He went on to learn how electricity was brought to the town post office. He then wired his parents' house, and it became one of the first residents in town to have lights. His knowledge of construction allowed him to build his own home in Del Mar. He became the go-to person at the concrete companies he worked for in San Diego from 1976 to 2000. Dad was given the most complicated formwork jobs, including curved fountains and trial supports for a high-speed bullet train track. There are photos in the program of a couple of his projects. Costa was a hard worker and proud of what he accomplished. A friend from high school told about being on a construction site with Dad. They had built the formwork for a high wall, and somehow that started tipping. Dad single-handedly held it in place. Dad helped us build additions to our house. When we poured the foundation for the new garage, a friend of ours got a hernia because he thought he had to keep up with my dad, who was decades older. My father was strong until the end, still able to lift my mom after her stroke and to help her in their last years together. My parents have been married for 61 years. They are a good-looking couple with a complicated partnership. Dad was firm, Mom was fun. I was born a year after they married. We made several attempts to immigrate to the U.S. The first time we spent about 6 months in a refugee camp near Trieste, Italy. The second time, through Vienna, the International Rescue Committee sponsored us to join my father's older brother in Los Angeles. My parents went from an inheritance of property to a 1-bedroom apartment in Inglewood. Elena was born while we lived there. 16 years passed between my birth and that of Margareta. Margareta was still in high school when Dad became a grandfather. Costa doted on his grandchildren. The man who demanded quiet when he entered the house during our childhood was now playing on the floor with Nadia and Audrey after a full day of construction work. The girls spent time with their grandparents eating well and learning Romanian. If anything broke, they knew Moshe fix it. This extended from working on our house to putting a bolt through Barbie's neck to keep her head attached. When Evan was born, Dad was bowling and turning bowls in his retirement. I remember Dad asking me to help him get hearing aids. He wanted to be able to hear what Evan was saying. During the COVID years, Dad's world grew smaller, and the arrival of Nora brought him immense joy. With her engaging personality, she brought many smiles to him during a difficult time. I realized that as we age, the essence of who we are distills. Dad's wisdom and caring became more apparent. When he had to rely on us to drive and shop and take care of their finances, he would end every visit by being thankful. He would say, "Mulțumim pentru ce ai făcut." Thank you for all that you've done. He would say that he did what he could for us, and he appreciated that we were there for him. Despite always wanting to die in the house he built, Costa took the transition to assisted living well. This is what old age is like. Costa lived his life with great honesty, gentle strength, and deep humility. My husband, Stephen, says that Dad is the most content man he has ever met. He appreciated his life and kept things simple. In the last decades of his life, Dad often told us he loved us. He and Mom became more loving and nurturing of each other. He was her strength, and she was his mind. I will miss his physical presence, but know that he is in every cell of my body, especially in my heart. Dad sacrificed a lot so his daughters would have a better life. I know that he has touched all your lives for the better. May Dad rest in peace.
Thank you, Diana. Next, we are going to hear from Elena.
Hello, I'm Elena, Costa's middle daughter. We bring moral support with me. Thank you all for being here on a Monday. We're watching via Zoom. I know Monday is a work day for many of you, so I really appreciate the efforts for all of you traveling far to be here. Dad taught me so much in his lifetime, and it was hard to choose what to talk about today. I decided that I would distill it down to 3 values, 2 sayings, and 1 virtue that have stuck with me throughout the years. He liked structure, so I think he would have appreciated that. The first value was speaking more than 1 language. It was important to Dad and Mom that we be able to speak Romanian. When I was born, they had only been in the US for about 4 years, and were still in the process of learning English. It was important to them that we be able to communicate with our relatives abroad, and they figured that it was better for us to learn proper English in school than it would be for them to teach us when they were still learning. I'm grateful for this because it paved the way for learning several other languages, and it taught me to appreciate the nuances of words in different languages. The second value was respecting animals. Dad loved animals. Some of my fondest childhood memories were when he took us to the San Diego Zoo, the Wild Animal Park, and the Del Mar Fair. At the fair, we would walk through the livestock corrals, checking out the pigs, cows, sheep, chicken, and rabbits. I think it reminded him of growing up on a farm, and it helped expose Margareta and me, who were growing up in suburbia, to the smells of farm life. He also kept an active zoo membership until late in his life, I think his 70s. For most of my birthdays in my 30s and 40s, Dad's gift to me was a zoo membership that he renewed every year. It grew to include my new family members, David and Evan. I always think of him when I'm at the zoo, or at the safari park, as it's called now. At a visit to the Wild Animal Park, as it was called at the time, I heard Dad say one of the sayings that I still think of often. It is a Romanian phrase, "Tot magarul poartă samarul." Loosely translated, this means all donkeys carry their own saddle packs. It came up in the context of one of us wanting him to carry something for us, and he wanted us to be responsible for our own things. I was tickled by it the first time I heard it, so I would bring it up later in conversations, but I would always butcher it. It took me a couple years before I didn't say it backwards, like Totsamaru Porto Magaru. And he would laugh so hard when I said it wrong. I was proud when I finally mastered it. As I've grown up, the phrase has grown to have a deeper meaning for me, something like, we all have our burdens to bear. I also think of it as we all have our role in contributing to get the work done. Dad had a strong sense of duty, and he was generous in sharing his skills and talents. The third value was being resourceful. The value of resourcefulness ties into the other saying that I want to share with you today. Dad would often say in Serbian, "Bezalata nema zanata." The translation of this is on the cover of today's program. In English, it means, without the right tool, there is no craft. Dad had a tool for everything. If it didn't exist, he would go ahead and invent it. His Delmar house was full of customizations that he engineered, and some of his creations will be on display today at the reception after the service. An example of Dad's resourcefulness is in the story of when he built our garage cabinets. Dad wasn't one to procrastinate. When I mentioned that I wanted cabinets in my garage, he was on it. He went out to the store the next day, bought all the materials, and brought them right over. He was ready long before we were, and it took us a while to figure out how we wanted them to be. The supply sat there for a few months, much to his dismay. By then, some of the plywood had warped. But Dad was undeterred. He measured and cut the pieces, then assembled and installed the cabinets. Some of the cabinet doors would not sit flush against the shelves because either the top or the bottom was warped. But Dad's solution for that was to handcraft some metal levers that swiveled up and down to hold the door flat when it was closed. This was 16 years ago, so by now the doors are all molded into place. But we also have the bonus benefit of extra secure cabinets in the case of an earthquake. Dad was a resourceful problem solver. So I've talked about the 3 values and the 2 sayings. That leaves the 1 virtue. The 1 virtue that I'm calling out today is Dad's patience in teaching me and my sisters how to drive. He always stayed calm and was very detailed in his instructions. I especially appreciated his skill in teaching me how to parallel park. It served me so well when I lived in urban neighborhoods with tight spaces. His grandson turns 15 next week, and a driving permit is on the horizon. I truly hope that I can channel Dad's patience and grace when I have my turn as the passenger teacher. I know Dad will be there with us in spirit, probably chuckling and smiling. I miss seeing Dad's face light up at me. I treasure the moments and the memories of doing word searches with him and seeing his triumphant expression whenever he found a word. He would then make sure the lines were extra straight, encircling them using a ruler for precision and neatness. As a tribute to him, I made a couple of word searches in his honor that will be available at today's reception. Even though I miss him, Dad lives on in all the projects he created in my home, the lessons he taught me, the memories we shared, and all the lovely, sappy birthday cards he gave me over the years. He was a man of few words, but he was always very thoughtful in the cards that he selected. And I will always think of him whenever I smell wood dust. The wood shop is just synonymous with him. I love you, Tati. May you rest in peace after a life well lived. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. And now I'd like to invite Deliana up to the podium, who's going to read the eulogy written by Margareta. And again, Margareta is joining us via Zoom. We've got the camera here, and thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored to read Margareta's words. Big things and little things. Our father was a man of few words. His life lessons were not diatribes, but rather he would offer poignant words of wisdom at the right time. I come to think of this as taking the big things in strides and taking the little things seriously, with the understanding that the big things are those that are not in your control. So your task is to accept them in grace, plan for them if possible, and move forward. The little things are to be taken seriously because they are the ones in your control and can become habits ingrained in daily life. It took some time to understand this about our Father. As a child, I learned many of the little things that our Father wanted done a certain way. Make sure to put the pen back near the telephone so that it was there when the next person wants to write a note. Make sure to close the blinds so the afternoon sun doesn't bake the furniture. Make sure not to make too much noise when he's napping so he does not wake up. Not abiding to the little things would provoke a negative reaction. Transitioning towards adulthood, I thought about when big things happen, there would be bigger consequences. I was wrong. I was still in high school when Elena came home crying. She was driving from Berkeley to San Diego for Thanksgiving and had a car accident. Somewhere in between, she was crying because it was her fault. Instead of chastising her for not paying attention, I watched him give her a big hug and said, "The most important thing is that you are okay." At some time also in high school, I showed him my straight A report card, hoping for praise. I was surprised when he said, "It is your choice. It is your life. You choose what to do with it." Although I felt hurt and it seemed dismissive, but later I would appreciate that what he was saying was that he loved me unconditionally, regardless of my grades. I had the opportunity of a good education. It was my choice whether to take it. Knowing the importance that my parents both put on being frugal and saving money, I felt guilty about tuition costs for university. When an ROTC recruiter approached me in high school, I was curious about this. My mom and dad would not have to spend so much money on college for me. When I told Dad about my idea, he said he didn't want me to endure the hardship of the military like he had to do in his consumption. He would pay for my university. My way to help him was to finish undergrad in 3 years instead of the standard 4. I still find it remarkable the level of trust that he gave us. He would write one big check for the quarter, and then it was my job to pay tuition, books, rent, and all the rest. By saving money steadily every year through the little things, he was able to be generous beyond what most children could hope for. I hope I can do the same for my daughter Nora. He was fair with his love. He would look at me and say, "I have 3 daughters, and I love them all." He bought each of us a car when we turned 16. In fact, he bought me 2 cars because at 16, I negotiated that I should get a used car and a new bike instead. Unlike my other sisters, that first used car turned out to be a lemon and left me aside on the road a few times. The second one was such a good car that it kept running and running to be used after I moved to Germany by my niece Audrey and my cousin's daughter Sarah. When I was in Ghana in 2018, I realized that the same model car was still being used as a taxi for the same reason that it kept going and going. Although at a certain level, we may imagine that we want our parents to keep going and going, the realities of the cycle of life take hold. I am grateful that he passed peacefully with dignity. I am grateful that I had time together with him in March this year when I traveled to the U.S. with my family for Nadia's wedding. This was a joyful event, and it was an honor to help Dad shave, get dressed, and help him with his tie. He even wanted to wear his hat. At the wedding, I was impressed that he stayed alert throughout the wedding, watching everything, taking in the Rocky and toasting at the end of every speech along with everybody else. We had planned that we might need to take him home earlier to rest, but he surprised us all. I was grateful that Nora could share so many laughs with Moshe. When he would come into the room, she would scoot over and make room for him to sit next to her. Then she would empathetically pat the spot with her hand so that he knew that she wanted him to sit there. Other times when she was doing word searches with him in his room, helping him draw in his book, she would close the door on me and sit and with an expression, "Mom, go away. I'm hanging out with Moshe right now." The day before our last night in the U.S., when we were saying goodbye to Moshe, she insisted on giving him not one but 2 kisses on his cheek. It was truly remarkable what my parents were able to accomplish in their life together, arriving in the U.S., not knowing the language, and without money. They steadily built from the ground up, making everything they could from scratch, repairing what could be repaired, and upcycling before it was a thing. They made the American dream a reality. May Tata be at rest here in this beautiful park in San Diego with cool breezes from the Pacific Ocean overhead. The big things and little things now come together. I like to take this opportunity to say Uncle Costa attended my dad's funeral 5 days before his own passing. So I wrote a little poem. The 2 brothers embrace. They are grateful for their time together in a new place. They reflect on their past and especially about their younger days as kids. They were born 3 years apart. While growing up, they talked for hours in the dark. They share their dreams about their future. Today, they support each other. Together, they support each other and left their homeland together. Their wives were friends. Their children were the dearest of cousins. They now sat on a bench and reflected over the 80-plus years of experiences with all their siblings. They discussed all their wonderful memories they made over the years. Now, when they were in heaven together, less than 3 weeks apart, they were grateful how life had exceeded all their plans of their youth, and now they could be together again for a new adventure. We love you, Uncle Costa, and you shall forever be missed.
Thank you, Elena and Diana and Margareta, for your words. That was beautiful. Thank you very much. I'd ask the pallbearers now to prepare to move the casket to the gravesite. And Veronica, we're going to, Audrey's going to come and pick up the flowers, and we're going to put your flowers on the casket right now. As the casket is moved, close family is invited to follow the casket. There are more flowers over by the gravesite for you to place onto the casket once it's moved over there. And the rest of us will stay back for a few moments. Family, siblings, by all means, please join.
Am I supposed to be shooting that? I thought I
Yeah.
was.
I want you to shoot for a little longer.
Yeah, I mean, just from right here.
Yeah.
Okay.